Boz Scaggs, how are you, sir?
I'm good, Mike. Thanks. How are you?
So good to have you on. 92.7 WVLI, Mike Tomano here. Boz Scaggs performing at the lovely auditorium in Chicago Wednesday, November 5th, and we're honored to have this legend on the show. You know, your music has made me very happy. Thank you.
Well, thanks. I appreciate you.
As a child of the 70s, you know, I was first introduced to your music through the Silk Degrees album, and it owned the airwaves in the bicentennial summer. So being a young, inspiring drummer, I was not only blown away by Jeff Porcaro's drumming, your singing, and your songwriting, but just noticing how the album was produced. And you've always had an ear and a penchant for great musicians. So who did you pick for this tour?
Let's see. We have John Harrington is playing guitar. He's been the regular Steely Dan guitar player for many years now. They're on hiatus, and John's playing with me for this tour. We have a bass player named Willie Weeks, who's sort of a legend in musician circles. Yeah.
Right.
Man from Chicago, his name is Michael Logan, who's been with me for a number of years. And Brantley Mejia from Miami is percussionist. His father is in Santana. And let's see, we have Eric Crystal, who is a multi-instrumentalist, primarily a reeds player, and a very upcoming happening drummer by the name of Jameson Ross, who's won a Grammy last year for his singing, but he's a brilliant drummer.
It's something else.
So that's the lineup.
Yeah, that's great. And how long is the tour going?
We have till Thanksgiving Eve, so that's about another month.
You know, recently I pulled out the Silk Degrees album. I'm going to talk about your songwriting because you are nominated for the Songwriters Hall of Fame. Congratulations. And
well, thank you.
My wife and I were sitting around, we're having some wine. I think a bottle of wine and Boz Scaggs music just goes together. And I put on We're All Alone, and then I put it on repeat. And at first, my wife said, "Oh, what a beautiful song." And by the 10th time around, she was like, "Are you okay, Mike?" Because I was just, your ballads just bring me to tears. They're just such perfect songwriting. So when you're picking your set list, how do you balance it out between the rockers, the blues, the soulful stuff, and those unbelievable ballads?
Well, you used the word that I use. We have to balance it out, because I like to give the audience a good deal of what they expect to hear, that is radio hits and songs from Silk Degrees. And there's some, the most recent album, well, there's one out, just came out, but the one before that was nominated for Best Contemporary Blues for a Grammy. And so we want to mix some of that stuff up. I come from a blues background.
Right.
We do, one of the most requested songs is a song out of Chicago called "Loan Me a Dime,"
right?
That I made in Muscle Shoals many years ago. So it is a mix. It is a blend. And I love to do the ballads, but of course I've got some rock and roll in me and some rhythm and blues, and I like to get that out too. The band is versatile enough to,
Yeah. Willie Weeks, I think you could throw anything at him. He's going to be fine.
You're right about that. Yeah. Willie's been around and through all the periods that I've worked through.
Not only do you hit the notes, but you're never just singing notes or just matching the music. You're singing the song. So to keep it fresh, how do you do that?
I tend to my voice for the most part. I really love to sing, and I really love the music I do. And every night is different. Every night is a different approach. That's why I keep good musicians, and that's why we deliver it the way we do. It's fresh. In some songs I may have played hundreds of times, but it's different each time. So I try to make the reading feel like that, because that's what it is.
Yeah. You have had a long, illustrious career. How did music first enter your life?
Well, the same way it enters most people's life, I suppose. They hear the music in their home. And then, of course, I came up when the new sounds of radio. I was just a kid, and hearing the first rock music on the radio. And my generation was really the first that just grew up with our whole sensibilities on the radio all the time with top 40 music, and then we evolved into FM music. But it's radio that inspired my generation of musicians.
Yeah, and you came up during a time when the music you listened to defined your identity, who you were.
It was. I mean, that's always been the case. I think every generation has its own. I mean, my parents came up in the in the 40s, and they reflected the music of that time. But we were probably the first generation who had so much freedom. We had radio. I'm talking about my generation. We had radio. We were able to go out, and some cases, depending on where you lived, to see the music that was on the radio and see things live. So people sort of adapted the styles of their favorite, and it was very, very different from the styles of our parents when rock and roll hit, when Fats Domino and Little Richard and Elvis Presley and so on and so forth came out. There was a distinct style that went with the style of singing, and of course, just as today, you tend to emulate your heroes, your stars. So that's what we get.
Yeah.
And it's still there. It's
right.
kind of amazing.
Is it still music that excites you and inspires you? I know you have a show Wednesday. I could probably keep you on the phone till then, going through your discography. Other Roads, one of my favorite albums. Middleman was one that I bought after I got Silk Degrees, because back then I was a young kid in my early teens, and I was listening to, you go from Kiss and then you hear Silk Degrees. It brings you into a whole new level of appreciation of music and a whole different thing. It was like stuff that the older kids in the neighborhood were listening to, and they're like, you got to give this a shot, check this out. And then when I got Middleman with a Breakdown Dead Ahead and JoJo, and then Look What You've Done to Me, that was in Urban Cowboy, right?
That's right. Yeah, we wrote that song for Urban Cowboy.
So going through your albums, I remember when you put out, because if I'm going through a store and I see a Boz Scaggs album, I'm picking it up. But Beautiful was jazz standards that you did. And tell me about that, making that album, because it's just mind-blowing.
Well, thanks. I'm glad you like it. That's music that I've listened to growing up with my parents' generation, and that was music that was on, and I always had an ear out for it. But I had a studio in San Francisco, and I loaned it to some jazz musicians, a quartet, to make a record. And I got to know the musicians, and we became friends, and we started playing together. I befriended the pianist, and he asked me if I'd ever sung any ballads or standards from that era. I told him that I know quite a few of those songs, but I've never performed them, although I've sung them for myself. And that led to a friendship and exploration of that music, and which eventually led to our doing some shows together and my recording that album. It just kind of fell in naturally as something that was always there, but it got tapped out of me when I met that musician. And I've just released another album of those standards. It's just come out last week.
Oh, wonderful!
So it's the third in a series of those standards and ballads.
I listen to your music, and it defines the eras that you've been in. When you look back at your records, what are the ones you're most proud of?
Well, I can't help but be attached to Silk Degrees. It meant a lot. That there were great songs. It was like an opening for me. I had made about 4 or 5 albums before Silk Degrees came out, but that one sort of brought all my writing and my vocals and the musicians together, and I felt like I got some traction that really defined my career to a great degree.
It's a masterpiece. It's amazing, and it was the album that pretty much put together the band Toto.
Well, they were studio musicians when I met them, and I think that they're coalescing around that album with me gave them a focus about what the next step was going to be in their lives.
Right.
And obviously, the rest was history. The other album that strikes me is one that was called Dig. It came out on that famous September 11th day in 2001. And all the publicity that had been planned for that album and the release of it had just sort of went down the tubes with everything else that was going on in America at that time.
That's a great album.
That was an album that I made also with this fellow named David Page, who was the arranger of Silk Degrees, and it's another album that has I'm very proud about.
It's a great album.
The Standards records too.
That has the great Danny Korchmar on it, an underrated guitar hero.
Well, thanks for remembering.
Oh, yeah.
Well, he's very highly rated in musician circles. But, he's very important.
Well, like I said, I could sit and talk to you all day. What a wonderful catalog of music you've given us. You're still doing it. The new album is out, and you're coming to the Auditorium Theater on Wednesday, and we've got tickets to give away. Boz, when I tell you it's an honor to talk to you, I certainly appreciate your time, and I wish you all the best on your tour and with the new album.
Thank you, Mike. It's been great talking to you. I appreciate the memories.